Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. Here are two more of my own stories. I do like writing to a variety of challenges and have done over 100 of these stories so far. You can read them via my website at ravensview.ca. I'll be doing these on Fridays and some of the classics on Tuesdays. The prompt for the first story was to pick your opening sentence from a book you were reading. On page 83, 8th sentence. I was reading Ready Player One. For the second, we had to pick a setting from a list of 6 we were given. I got aisle 9 in the grocery store. Here's the first story. Hunter or helper. Each sector was divided up into many different zones that varied in size and shape. Most were kill zones, only a few were safe, but Dan was confident he could make it all the way across the sector alive. He'd always been in good shape and active in sports, a star quarterback in college. More importantly, the previous 2 weeks' basic training had uncovered some surprisingly good skills with a variety of weapons. He did realize, though, that his odds in the game, bad to start off, also depended on which side all the other gamers chose for their bots to play when the game started. Some would declare as hunters, trying to chase down the runner and kill him for a share of the prize money. Some would choose to be helpers, trying to block the hunters and also give the runner access to better weapons and armor, more ammo, and even shortcuts to a safe zone. They too could get a share if he won, but a smaller cut. Joining this week's game had been an act of desperation for Dan. First, he'd lost his job, and now his son was sick. The prize would be enough for medical treatments, and he hoped for a comfortable retirement. He'd even be able to surprise his brother-in-law Jonathan with some cash next time he pestered Dan for money for some harebrained scheme. Dan hadn't told his family he decided to be the runner. "I'll be gone a few days," he said. "It's a huge business deal, the opportunity of a lifetime." Officially, he would remain anonymous, win or lose, as did the other gamers. No one had to ever know what choices any of them had made. There was a difference in consequences, though. While the gamers, wired into their VR couch, could feel the pain of blows and knives and bullets, death was an illusion for them, only a lockout until the next game. The runner, on the other hand, could actually die. He was not just directing an automaton, he was actually there. Anonymous, but very mortal. He checked his equipment one more time and approached the gate. This first zone was a safe one, but only for 30 seconds. Then it would flip, and the hunters and helpers would start after him. He gave a thumbs up to the games master and stepped into the zone. He scanned the status overlay as he walked through. Nothing in sight yet, except a rat on the nearest video pedestal chewing on one of the cables. Not his problem. Dan loaded his rifle and got ready to run. Jonathan settled into his VR couch, placed the helmet over his eyes, and slid his hands into the control gloves. This new reality system was the best he'd ever experienced. He'd feel every footstep, but also every blow, every shot. He'd borrowed the large entry fee for a seat in the game from his sister. He really was good at this, so he was sure to win and pay her back before her husband Dan found out. More importantly, he had more than enough to start up his new project. "It's a great deal, sis," he said. "Best I've ever come up with. Dan wouldn't even listen to me this time when I asked, but I'll show him." Jonathan checked the odds board. Definitely favored choosing Hunter this time. The runner scored high in fitness, agility, and marksmanship. He could still benefit from a team of helpers, but would attract hunters too. He'd be a tough nut to kill, but also it would be a worthwhile challenge for people. He checked the game timer. Any minute now. There it was, the buzzer, and the runner stepped through. He was a big guy, face blurred by the system, of course, but his stance looked confident as he stomped through the gate, all armored up and ready to go. When the rat chewed through the cable, there was a spit of sparks and a brief pause before the backup feed took over. For a split second, the facial blur was off, and Dan's face gazed out of the screen, then blurred again. Jonathan sat up and stared at the screen. He could have sworn it was his brother-in-law. Dan had claimed to be going on a business trip, but maybe he lied. Maybe he was just looking to get rich quick. Jonathan sat at his console, alone and anonymous, and Move the cursor towards the two status buttons, red for Hunter, green for Helper. He clicked on a button. The end. Which button did he click? What would you do? Here's the second story. Aisle 9 in the grocery store. Bonnie felt like a fool, still pushing her cart up and down the same aisle. She paused, pretending to read the label on a can of salmon, but looked behind her. No one. Well, at least no one she was interested in. It had started with yet another smile, the online kind, of course. She'd had a lot of them on the dating site lately, especially since she'd added some photos. She started there as private, wanting to be appreciated for her mind, not her body, but realized she was just as biased, only checking out the guys with nice-looking photos. She knew the text-only profiles could have written anything, just to set the hook. She'd done that a bit too, and so then she picked out some flattering pictures from several years ago for herself. So, in spite of knowing a lot of this was just a game for people, some truths, some half-truths, some out-and-out lies, in spite of this, here she was, loitering in aisle 9. One of last week's smiles had seemed intriguing, his profile interesting, his subsequent emails open, thoughtful, funny. She was surprised when her friend Kim didn't share her enthusiasm about her new friendship. "Bonnie," she said, "are you looking for a pen pal, or do you want to get some action going? You'll be an old maid, some boring office job, an apartment filled with cats, trading emails with some pathetic guy living in his mother's basement." Bonnie glared at her. "Okay, so what if we do meet?" she said. "You'll be a nice guy for a while, we'll date, he'll start sleeping over, I'll start to like him, then he'll start pulling back, say it's not my fault, it's all him, then he's gone." "Or you'll do the same," said Kim, "like with Dave. He was a keeper, I thought." "It's just so much work," said Bonnie. "So shut up and get to work," said Kim. "Tell this guy you want more. Just don't get up and run when the honeymoon's over. And don't let him do it either." "What if he doesn't want to meet?" said Bonnie. "What if he just wants to be friends and won't talk anymore? This is kind of nice like this. I really like him." "Yeah, and then you'll call me at 3 a.m. again," said Kim, "complaining about your boring office job and how you'll never meet anyone." "Okay, one more try." "That's my girl," said Kim. "Look, he's online now. I'll tell him you want to meet." They waited, Bonnie biting her nail until her computer chimed. "Oh, I can't look," she said. "What did he say?" "Yes," said Kim, pumping her fist. "He wants to meet you this afternoon." "Oh, wait, at the grocery store." "That's different." "He wants to check out the melons," said Bonnie. "Good one," said Kim. "Just a sec." She grabbed the keyboard and typed. Another chime. He laughed, says he's a leg man too. "Oh, maybe I should go." She laughed at Bonnie's look. "Just joking." "Okay," said Bonnie. "Tell him I'll be there, quick before I change my mind." "Shit, I'm nervous. This feels like my first date when I was 12. 12? I was 10, said Kim. She typed, then waited. "Done. 2 o'clock. He even picked the aisle for you to lurk in. Here, I'll write it on your arm so you don't get flustered and forget." So here she was, all dressed up, wandering up and down aisle 9. Luckily, it was a huge store, so there was lots of aisle to wander in without looking too weird. There'd been a couple of cute guys earlier. One had even flirted a bit, but she turned him down. No sign of her guy. She glanced at her watch. It was almost 2:30. Well, that was it. Another loser after all. She scurried to the exit and hopped onto a waiting city bus. She stared out the window, blinking back her tears as the bus pulled away. She wiped her face and sat up. "Get a grip, girl," she said. The woman across the aisle looked up, then back to her newspaper. Bonnie bent over her phone. First, she sent a nasty text to asshole, saying she never really was interested anyway, and then she deleted her profile. This was all such a waste. She texted Kim, too, telling her aisle 9 was a waste. He never even showed. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Kim. 9? 9? You dork. I wrote it for you. 6. Run. Oh, but it was too late. Bonnie slumped in her seat. Maybe she'd see if Kim would drive her to the pet store tomorrow. The end. Poor Bonnie, although cats are nice. Stay tuned for more podcasts, either my own stories on Fridays or some of the classics on Tuesdays. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get the next installment as soon as it's ready. If you enjoy this reading or have other stories you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. And do check out my other posts on my Substack at ravensview.substack.com. Ta-ta for now.